Hello, everybody. This is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. It's January 17th, but I'm recording a monthly forecast for the month of February right now because I'm leaving for India for several weeks on Friday. So today's talk is just going to be covering the sort of day by day of the month of February, something to look forward to. I know it's a little bit early, but I'd prefer to do it now and make sure that you guys have something to think about for the month of February as opposed to having nothing because I'm gone. So, and I also don't think I'm going to have great internet connection in India. So, where I'm going to be anyway. All right, so I'm going to go, sort of blow by blow through the month, talking about big themes and talking about specific transits. The first and biggest thing to take note of at this time is, as of January 31st, we have a lunar eclipse in the sign of Leo. Then February 15th, there's a new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius. Well, this is continuing on the theme of eclipses in these signs. So if you are a Leo sun or moon, or an Aquarius sun or moon, or a Leo rising or an Aquarius rising, in particular, these eclipses will be very powerful, much more likely to be, dynamic, personal, life-changing kinds of experiences with eclipses that land in your home sun, moon, or rising positions. Now, the quickest way to understand specifically what might be going on outside of, seeing if they coincide with the sun and moon, which have such deep personal significance for all sort of the rising sign, would be to look at the whole sign house that they rule. Now, I'm a big whole sign house guy. I'll at some point do another talk about whole sign houses and why I chose to use them at a certain point in my career, how that was a big turning point in my career. But for now, what we'll just say is check the house that Leo rules or that Aquarius rules. Check your whole sign Leo or Aquarius houses. The topics of those houses will be pronounced. If you don't know the topics of the houses, then and if you don't have access to your birth chart, then in some ways it's much more difficult to be specific about things like eclipses. One good thing to do, honestly, is to check a sun sign horoscope column. I write one every month. There's one that'll be coming out from February on astrograph.com. If you go to astrograph.com and check out their monthly sun sign horoscopes, if you don't know much about your birth chart, you could always check out the sun sign horoscopes there. Sometimes I get questions about sun sign horoscopes. What are they? How do they work? It works like this. Sun sign horoscope is a horoscope specifically designed to, it's like a specific tarot spread, you could say, a specific type of astrological divination that is used specifically to read for the sun sign of an individual. Now, the sun sign as a universal significator represents the general sense of purpose that we have, meaning, and you could say life direction. So those horoscopes are sort of specifically designed to get right at some of the bigger life direction things happening in your life. Where am I going? What am I doing? What am I here to do? That kind of, that sense of purpose. That's what the sun really addresses. So sun sign horoscopes can focus in on that, and the eclipses will then be oriented through the lens of the symbol of the sun. The way that it works is simple. Let's say you're a Cancer sun. I'm a Cancer sun. So you would put the whole sign house of Cancer as the first house, and the sun is because it's the sun's sign. So the sun sign of Cancer goes on the first house cusp. Then what you're doing is you're tracking all the transits for any given month or week or day through the 12 whole sign houses, with the rising sign and house being your sun sign. That's how sun sign columnists like myself and others write monthly forecasts. That's how Susan Miller, if you've ever read her Astrology Zone monthly forecasts, which are so popular, that's how she does. That's the exact same logic that she's using. So that form of astrology is very new, right? So sometimes that causes us to overly emphasize our sun signs. But it's a valid form of divination, and it can be very helpful as long as you understand that you're sort of turning the chart and creating a form of forecast that's very specific just to the meaning of the sun as a symbol. Okay, so anyway, that's an aside. Check out your sun sign columns for the month ahead. You'll most sun sign columnists, I in particular covered the meanings for every single sun sign. So if you're not aware of where Leo and Aquarius fall in your birth chart for these eclipses, then check out, go to astrograph.com and you can check out my monthly horoscopes there. Otherwise, look at the topics of those houses in your birth chart. They're going to be big. This is a series of eclipses that's been happening in Aquarius and Leo for quite some time now, so that's going to continue. For example, you like, let's say whole sign Leo is my 4th house, right? Solar eclipse back in August, a big one, series of eclipses in the 10th and 4th, career in my chart with Aquarius in the 10th, and family stuff with Leo in the 4th, just very basically. So a lot of changes for me professionally. I'm finishing some private apprenticeships that have been deepening my own craft and study of both yoga and astrology. And also have been, my wife is pregnant again, so we're having a little addition coming to our family. So career stuff and family stuff, big changes in those areas of my life. Eclipses rolling through 10 and 4, Leo and Aquarius. So look at those charts, look at those houses in your chart and see where they're landing. The topics are usually complementary and sort of opposed. In my case, public professional life and private home life. So there's a kind of complementarity to the topics and what kinds of things are getting brought up. And remember, eclipses move in waves. So the first eclipse, January 31st, should be included in February's forecast, because February 1st and the rest of the month, the effects of the eclipse are going to be playing out. February 15th, there's a new moon, another big eclipse, solar eclipse, almost exactly opposite to the degrees of the Leo eclipse from last August. So that's where you start. That's the big news for February. All right, but day by day, let's break some of it down. I'm going to speak, in some broader generalities for the month of February, but hopefully this will, I'll have enough that's also very specific here. So you can see on the chart here, I have, you'll see the 31st. Let's see, let me get a little drawing tool. You'll notice that on February 1st, we're looking at, here's Leo, the Leo moon, just opposite still the sun in Aquarius. So that's what we're talking about when we say it's, the month starts in the wake of, it's still basically the full moon. It's still, just after a lunar eclipse on, in Leo on that very, it's a Thursday, so Wednesday, right? So pretty clear way of starting the month. All right, so let's keep going. In the next couple of days, the next sort of big thing that happens is right around February 3rd. You're going to see, move this along here. You're going to see Venus pulling right, there we go. You'll see Venus moving right into a square with Jupiter. So you've got Venus at 21 Aquarius and Jupiter at 21 Scorpio. Now, the Venus-Jupiter transit in general, again, look at the Aquarius and Scorpio areas of your chart to get more insight into specific topics. But otherwise, Venus square Jupiter is an extravagant transit. It's great for love. It's great for romance. It's great for friendship. It's great for meeting allies, friends, benefactors, people that might stand to benefit you, to making agreements for the future, to finding good luck or support from people who have support to give. It's also possible to be sort of overdoing something, to be a little too indulgent, or possibly, to spend too much money, to overestimate yourself or others, to, all the glitters isn't gold. So be careful about that with this transit. That's a phrase that I use a lot for certain kinds of transits. This would be one of them. All right. The other thing that's happening is right around the same time, Mercury in Aquarius is also making a sextile to Mars in Sagittarius. So on the one hand, there's this really nice sort of social and like harmonious, like Venus-Jupiter square, very lovely. And there's also like this nice harmonious sextiles are of the nature of Venus. So a sextile is also a very harmonious relationship between Mercury and Mars. Well, Mercury is the mind, technology, speech, communication, the intellect, skills, media, writing, things like that. And Mars is, of course, aggression, impulse, courage, action, division, strife, dominance, war, etc. But when they're working together, this is incisive. This is speaking your mind and saying things that you really need to say. And this is also a transit that's good for communicating with a certain amount of courage and authority and force. It's about potentially intellectual or communicative breakthroughs, and it's a good moment to harmoniously say and do things that need to be done and to find receptivity with other people. So watch that. Now, the other thing about Mars Mercury, you have to be careful of, even though it's a sextile, is impulsive speech, being temperamental, getting agitated mentally, being harsh or severe in your language or words, maybe some sort of explosiveness in the air, some maybe difficulties or contentiousness, like while driving, this kind of thing. You just watch for the little bit of that fiery flavor at that time. Just be mindful of it. All right, so we're going to keep going. Let's see, I'm moving down my list here. The next one that I have marked out as a pretty significant transit is taking place on February 7th. This is a last moon in Scorpio that is, I'll just move my chart ahead here so that it's pretty close. Yeah, so here we have a last moon in Scorpio that is very closely conjoined with Jupiter. So you can see there's Jupiter, right? Very closely conjoined with Jupiter in the sky. Now, first of all, last quarter moons are usually about, if you think about the cycle of a plant, you think about the full moon as a plant ripening, right? Like a nice ripe, like avocado or something. But you got to let it sort of start to go past ripe a bit, and then it becomes, the fruit gets heavy and falls off the vine. The fruit is ready to eat. It's just that hint of decay that gives it a little sweetness. If you're, say, for a banana, that's a simple example. But by the time you get to a last quarter moon, you're talking about the fruit falling off the vine and transitioning into decay. So it's an important moment of both harvesting and letting go. The reason that this is such a big one is because it's pronounced, it's dramatic, it's emotional, it's deep, it's with Jupiter and Scorpio, and it's in the midst of eclipse season. So the kind of wisdom, knowledge, lessons, and releasing that's happening are significantly more pronounced with Jupiter, and also sort of deeper because the moon's in her depression in Scorpio. It's a place that's difficult for the inner life, that you have to look at things and be really honest with yourself. So it's potentially a very important and big time of harvesting something that's been learned and really releasing. So at any rate, that's a big transit for the moon cycle. That's on February 7th. Happens to be my sister's birthday too. Happy birthday, sis. All right, so moving forward then from here, the next transit that I really have my eye on is on February 11th. Move forward to February 11th, and what's happening is the planet Venus is right around then, it's entering the sign of Pisces, where it is exalted. Now, you always want to check when I'm mentioning these transits. If you know your birth chart, always look to what houses they're falling in. For ancient astrologers, there's probably nothing more important than looking at the topics of the houses, even more important than signs, which we place a lot of emphasis on in modern astrology. Now, so where are we? February 11th. Venus moving into Pisces means Venus is exalted. It's you're going to see all Venetian things: friendship, beauty, harmony, sensuality, sexuality, desire, love, lust. All kinds of Venetian things are going to, they're going to become really pronounced. So, for example, in my own chart, Venus will enter her exaltation and move into the 11th house of friends and allies, groups, things like that. And at that point, I would anticipate that there would be natural support, harmony, good luck, good supportive things coming into my life vis-a-vis friendships, allegiances, people that I share something in common with, and groups that I belong to, and things like that. But it's Venus is very strong when she's in Pisces, so very romantic and dreamy. Got to be a little bit careful to keep your feet on the ground with Venus in Pisces. Sometimes, she can get swept up in that kind of that romantic intoxication, but generally a really nice transit, and that's a big shift for Venus. Now, moving on from there, February 15th, we're looking at the new moon, and this is the solar eclipse in Aquarius. And just notice that this solar eclipse is very tightly conjoined. Like, we'll just push it forward just a little bit here so you can see. When they finally get together, just notice here that there's a big triple conjunction with Mercury. So this solar eclipse is also about communication. It's about technology and media. It's about learning and teaching and writing and maybe the development of particular skills or crafts or abilities. Those are all mercurial things. This new moon is going to very much be about a new beginning that incorporates either the need to reinvent ourselves in the sense of communicating differently, using technology differently, or it's maybe indicating a new agreement or a new way of presenting or communicating with others. Like, for example, it wouldn't be surprising to see exciting new tech projects taking place like in the collective at this time. But regardless, that transit is, think of new beginning. Now, Mercury combusts the sun at that time, which means Mercury is a little weakened, a little dominated. So repairing something, fixing something, restarting something, revising something that maybe has fallen apart in the mercurial realm, whether that's dialogue, communication, speech, media, technology, learning, writing, a skill, something maybe falls apart a little bit, and there's a new beginning, a new opportunity to sort of put it all back together. All right, so that's, and remember, check the Aquarius area of your chart in general. Now, moving forward from here, we're going to go on to February 17th. On February 17th, we have a Mars-Neptune square. Now, this is a classic, sort of, a lot of psychological astrologers would talk about this as the sign of, a martyr. You have Mars, the warrior, and Neptune, the the kind of the mystic, the compassionate saint, and the numinous, imaginative, and otherworldly Neptune. Well, Mars is a fighter, right? So there's something about this transit that is, heroic and otherworldly, mystical and brave. It's bravado and it's delusion. It has the desire to fight for a mission or a cause or a vision, but is that vision real? Is it something we're making up in our heads? It requires us to sacrifice. You see people dying for a cause under Mars Neptune, but you also see someone possibly martyring themselves in an unhealthy way. So, sacrifice, compromise, fighting for something, giving something. You have to be really careful as well for the glamour of Neptune that surrounds Mars, like, making something look more heroic than it may actually be. Watch for those kinds of things, but know that this can also be a time that's really inspiring, where you're inspired to take action because of some incredible, almost otherworldly vision or experience that you have. A dream or a calling appears, and you take up arms and take to action because of it. So that's a pretty good transit. Check out again the houses in your chart if you know them. Now let's keep going. We're going to February 18th is the next one. Right around this time, I just note the sun's moving into Pisces, right? So now Mercury has just recently moved into Pisces by this time as well. So just roughly around this time of month, you've got both Mercury and the sun entering Pisces. So now you're getting kind of that pile up feeling in the sign of Pisces, right? So what to make of that? Well, first of all, just notice that the Pisces whole house of your chart is going to start becoming very emphasized, like the topics of that house. If it's your marriage house, your relationships. If it's your financial house, your finances. If it's your first house, your health, or your sense of who your identity. Your eighth house, maybe your partner's finances, or the ninth house, long journeys, foreign countries, faith, religion, etc. 10th house, career. So pay attention. What house are all of these Piscean planets sort of starting to stack up in? Just like right now, I'm recording this on January 17th. There's a huge stellium new moon in Capricorn. That big pileup in Capricorn for me, a new moon, is taking place 2 days before I leave for a foreign country for a long time. So, that's a ninth house pileup and a new moon in the house related to foreign countries. You can always check this out in your own chart by looking at okay, so there's a pileup in Pisces. What house is that? Now, if you don't know, again, this is a great way to look at your sun sign horoscope. You could check out, again, if you go to astrograph.com around the end of this month, for February, you'll see my sun sign horoscopes, and you might be able to get more information about that. But what is the emphasis on so many planets in Pisces overall? Well, it's a Jupiter-ruled sign. It's a very faithful sign. It's a water sign, so it's sensitive, it's impressionable, it's gentle, it's compassionate, but it's also faithful, and it has sometimes kind of an underrated boldness and bigness about it. It's not just some kind of woo-woo, wishy-washy dreamer, drug addict. It's like the most horrible things that you hear about Pisces, right? But this is Pisces in general fills us with a sense of the material or mundane world that we're surrounded by, sparkling and shimmering with something else, with something beyond, and with something that inspires within us a sense of faith in the transcendent. It can also be about curiosity, playfulness, imagination, romance, longing, disappointment, and suffering, all deep emotional responses that we have to the mundane world that we live in. But it's a great sign to note that when so many planets are piling up in Pisces, it's a great time to be cultivating our inner life or our spiritual life if we're committed to a particular spiritual path. So at any rate, just note that also at this time, Mercury enters its fall in Pisces, which means that communication can become a little distorted. Communication can become, you can say more than you mean to and say things that you didn't mean to say. So you have to be very careful to keep clear discernment, clear boundaries, be very clear about what you're saying, why you're saying it. And if miscommunications do occur, study them, because they're opportunities. Often they're packed with deeper symbolic meaning if we take the time to study those Freudian slips or those bizarre synchronicities that pop up. They can be gateways to a deeper understanding of patterns within ourselves or within the world around us, a deeper understanding of even, our karma. So pay attention. Mercury in Pisces is classically debilitated, but that doesn't mean that there's not a ton to learn from the challenges of Mercury being in a Jupiter-ruled sign. At some point, I'll do a talk on what debilities are. Like what is a detriment? What is a fall? What is a rulership? What is exaltation? Why did ancient astrologers use them? There's a lot of misconceptions about them. Way too many people hate on dignities without having any idea what they actually are. So I'm a big advocate for them. Using them sensitively is important. Where at the end of the day, astrologers were shepherds for the life of the soul. So we have to use all astrological language sensitively. But the dignities are real. So don't ignore them. All right. Now, last but not least, toward the very end of the month, there's just a huge, just check out what happens here as we get into, actually on roughly the 20, I think it's it's going to be like the 22nd, 23rd, right around there. You're going to see, actually, let's get it exact. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first quarter moon in Gemini, also really highlighting the square to Mercury. So watch communication and tech things around this time. Watch learning, thinking, writing, communicating. Big moment for Mercury, not an easy one. But there's a crossroads, a kind of decision and clarifying and being very discriminating, discerning around this time. Important because you've got the moon in Gemini, Mercury's sign in a first quarter square, a kind of a tough moment of transition, first quarter moons, but good, growth oriented. But then it's squared up to Mercury, who's debilitated as well. So that's a little bit of a tricky moment. Okay, so then from there, watch what happens. We just get this pile up of stuff happening. Whoops. Here we go. So the rest of the month, what you're going to see is, you're going to get Mercury coming through the conjunction with Neptune, difficult again for communication, otherworldly insights, dreams, visions, but also challenges communicating clearly, challenges thinking clearly, some real delusions of grandeur possible during that time. And then you see Mercury, Venus and Mars are square, real sexual tension moment, difficulty in getting your point across, but also harmonizing with others, sort of balancing that yin and yang of Mars and Venus can be really creative, but also kind of tense. Then at the end of the month, you have Mercury coming into the square with Mars, which is also placing an emphasis on difficult communication, contentious communication, communicating with compassion while also trying to, perhaps take a stand for something or be more decisive about something. All of that. So you got, in other words, I'll just circle it so you can see. At the end of the month, you've got, these planets all getting together while making a square to Mars. So some real tension around communication and things like that at the, basically the end of the month. And that's all happening under the waxing moon as we're building toward a full moon. So it's a pretty dynamic time, and I would focus especially on relationships and communication dynamics within relationships as a real personal understanding of that. But there's too many things going on to break it down simply. So what I'll be doing is probably a little video toward the end of February, breaking this one down in a little bit more depth. All right, so that is your month of February. If you ever have any questions about anything that I'm writing about or would like to see me cover some other topics, you can always write me at nightlightastrology@gmail.com. You can also check out everything that I'm up to at nightlightastrology.com. And you'll find that I offer a variety of readings and courses. My next courses start in May, June on Monday nights. It's a year-long program. It's called Ancient Astrology for Modern Times. You can check that out on my website as well. Otherwise, as I said, if you want more specific breakdown, you don't know your chart very well, you can always check out the sun sign column that I write, which is going to be a little bit more personalized and specific. And that's at astrograph.com. It'll be posted around the very end of January. So I'm going to miss interacting with all of you guys while I'm in India, but I will also be there specifically to, enter prayer and meditation and try to, do some of that personal work that gives me that, we all have to go to the well, right? We have to find the well, draw from it, drink deeply so that we have good things to give others. So that's what I'll be doing. And then I'll be speaking at an astrology conference in Calcutta and hopefully learning some really cool things from my Jyotish and Vedic astrology colleagues from different part of the world. So I look forward to this a lot because my wife and I own a yoga studio here in the DC area called Sky House Yoga. I've been practicing yoga for a long time, studying yoga philosophy for a long time. It's fascinating to me. And yet I've never been to the sort of motherland of yoga, right? So I'm humbled by the opportunity to do something like this and hopefully share some of my experiences with all of you when I get back. All right. Well, you guys take care. Have a good rest of the month. Bye.